And we're live
For
again. Hopefully this
how long?
Theoretically.
yeah. Hopefully we weren't just talking for the last 5 minutes and nobody was hearing anything. But hey, if you heard us talking, welcome back.
If you heard us talking,
yeah.
oh my gosh.
If you heard us
We're
talking,
smack talking. Not too bad though.
And if you couldn't hear us, and this is the first time that you're seeing this podcast for the evening, welcome. We're in the 10th month
Yes.
of this podcast. We're going to be talking about feelings today. I'm really looking forward to it. Wyatt is off on the sidelines. He's going to be answering any questions that you guys have. That you can post them in the comment section of Facebook, Indeed, YouTube. And as a reminder, please do not post any of your family's names that may be at our facility for their privacy purposes.
Thanks, Terry.
Did I say LinkedIn?
I don't think so.
Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube.
Yes.
Don't post names in the comments. But feel free to ask questions. I'm also going to ask that Wyatt post me and Kathy's phone number because we're happy to take any calls or text messages, whichever you're comfortable with, after we log off the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time, I'm going to ask Kimberly to introduce our topic for this evening.
Well, okay. So we're going to talk about feelings. I kind of feel like we always talk about
We do.
feelings on some level, but we're going to dedicate tonight about feelings.
Yay.
So we've got this little guide in front of us. And as I looked at it earlier today, I started thinking back to my feelings and what it was like and coming out of it, kind of starting to understand what I really was feeling. Because when you're in it, in the addiction as the family member, everything is about that family member.
Mm-hmm.
So really understanding what my true feelings were wasn't there
Right.
at all. I did not understand what my feelings were. I knew I felt differently in different settings. Meaning, if you asked me where I felt comfortable, I guess, I would have said at work.
Sure.
Because there I felt in control in a healthier way, I think. I felt accepted. I felt more like myself,
Mm-hmm.
even though I still had the facade going on and all of those things. But I guess that in another way became kind of my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't working 100 hours a week or anything like that, but I could, from the minute I hit the door, leave the rest of it behind. Like I could just focus on work
Mm-hmm.
and what I needed to do and didn't have to worry about anything else unless the phone rang.
Mm-hmm.
And then like that, I get on to you about your ringer every once in a while because he has the same ringer I had during that period.
Mm-hmm.
And just my anxiety level will go when I hear that, and I have to talk myself back. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. And now it's not as big of a deal, but when it first was going off all of the time because he gets marketing calls and calls for admissions and things like that, so it was going off all of the time.
And it's turned all the way up to
Yes.
the way if it's on the other side of the house.
Exactly. And now I've kind of tuned it out. But at first that just created and I couldn't figure it out at first. Like, why does his ringer bother me so much?
Mm-hmm.
And I finally remembered, oh, that was my same ringtone back then. And that's why it bothers me. So, I could hide, but only for so long,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I guess that's a roundabout way of saying that work allowed me to numb out those feelings
Mm-hmm.
and not have to pay attention to them. kind of, what are your thoughts about
Well,
kind of just an overview of feelings?
Well, I agree with you that it's if you can, especially work's wonderful for that because you don't have your loved one and their chaos in front of you to worry about, and you get to be a person, like
Yeah.
outside of all of that. Like you get to be an actual person with other people.
Yeah, and that actually care about your feelings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Not that they don't.
No.
But everything's so about
Right.
the illness that everything gets lost.
Right. Yeah. But I was just thinking, like, I don't have like a noise per se, like his ringer did you, but I had similar instances come up recently, and one of them, when Drew was in his addiction, he pretty much lived on ramen. And we were on the phone a few weeks ago, and I keep hearing like this weird banging, smashing noise in the background. I'm like, what on earth are you doing? And he's like, smashing up some ramen. I'm hungry. I'm making some food. Instantly, my stomach dropped. And I had to take myself and go, he is fine. He's just having some dinner. Like,
Just some ramen
Is he?
noodles.
he's
having
he's allowed to eat ramen. He's fine.
You're connected to help him with
I
these
know.
skills.
But I also remember he had this water bottle like he would take to the gym, well, everywhere with him, covered in stickers, which he loves, like his stickers, and he puts them all over, all the things. But I remember him talking about how the stickers would cover up the fact that there was liquor in the bottle so people couldn't see it. And it's not the same one previously that he had, but he has another one covered in stickers because he's got really cool military and Viking and what have you stickers that he puts all over his stuff. And I happened to see one at his house a few weeks ago, and again, immediately stomach dropped. And again, I had to go, he is fine. It's just a water bottle. It just happens to have stickers on it. But it's funny how, I'm spitting everywhere. It's funny how those things can come out of nowhere and just punch you in the stomach. And you don't realize it. You think, like, luckily you're many more years up than we are with your husband's sobriety, but no. But even after like 4 years, it's like he's doing amazing. He's excelling and everything. But I still will have moments where I'm just like, oh, I honestly don't worry about his sobriety right now. But it's funny how those little things can just knock the wind out of you out of nowhere. And you have to find a way to bring yourself back to reality now.
And as you guys know, I'm in recovery.
Are you?
I am.
Yeah.
What?
Shocker. Surprise.
No,
And we don't realize that what we're doing, the actions we're taking, being dishonest, being manipulative.
Flip it all over.
It's
I
so
was just
Monday.
thirsty.
It's
Rude.
Jeez. We don't realize that our actions, like I was saying, the dishonesty, the manipulation, because I can think of the ways that I wanted to get my mom to do the things that I needed her to do to make sure that I could get what I needed to get. And and so I would be nice, and if that didn't work, I would be angry.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
And I don't realize that all these things are festering within her: guilt, fear, anger, sadness, and most of all, worry. Probably the sadness and the worry, especially because who knows what I'm doing at midnight? I've just stolen her car. I've stolen the money out of her wallet. Who knows what I'm doing out at midnight?
Right.
Nothing good, that's for sure. And a lot of family members. I know with my mom, she struggled with all these things for so long, and she probably never recognized that she had all these feelings going on with her because she had the ability to. I don't want to speak for her necessarily, but I was her main focus. I took that. I took her attention. I got to call. I was an emotional terrorist, and I required her attention all the time. And so she, like I'm saying, I don't want to speak for her. We've had good conversations back and forth. And I have an amazing relationship with my mom today. And from what I understand, I don't think she recognized all these feelings going on with her. And so the question I want to ask you guys is, why do those who aren't experiencing experiencing addiction feel like this? Why do they have all these things come up? However, they're suppressed. They're put away.
You
They're
mean
stuff
for
inside.
us?
Yeah, for you guys.
Oh, okay. Well, I think, because I'm thinking about, what you were explaining and what Kathy was explaining. I never really explained why the ringtone would freak me out, because the calls would come at work, right? So when I hear it at work, if I hear it elsewhere, it doesn't bother me. When I hear it at work, it just brings me back, because he would, I would share my schedule with him if I was going to be at a meeting, at a conference or whatever, because I was all over the place in the role that I had. And he would know that. And he would call, and he would start the call screaming and yelling at me, knowing I would be most likely around somebody.
Other people.
My executive director, so I was the clinical director, so I would be around my executive director or other, executive team members in a meeting, at a conference, and they can hear. I mean, just by in normal conversation, my husband has a loud voice.
Mhm.
So for him to scream, I couldn't breathe. And I would and I would try to tell him I can't talk right now. Well, he didn't care, because the only thing he cared about was getting whatever it was that he needed to, handle that addiction. And I work in the field, so they knew, and so I was mortified, because you don't want anybody to know what's happening. And so I would cover the story, or I would get up and go to the bathroom or something like that, and then I would always be beating myself up, like, why do you take the call? And I know if I don't take the call, he's going to keep blowing me up, so I know that's one. But why do you take it in front of everybody?
Well, there's also, I think,
knowing?
the what if. Like, what if I don't take this call and there's something seriously.
For me, it wasn't about the what if.
Mhm.
For me, it was always being duped.
Gotcha.
Because because it was a cycle,
Mhm.
because he was addicted to pills after surgery, right?
Mhm.
So I knew the ups and downs of the cycle, but I wouldn't mark them,
Right.
so I would be like, oh, it's been good. And I would just always believe
Mhm.
it wasn't going to happen again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I just lived in this state of hope on the one hand, but just complete naivety. No, I can never say that word. Being naive. And just, I loved my husband. I knew who he was, and I knew who this other, monster basically was. And that was not who I chose to associate my husband with. Like, here's my husband, and then, oh, that's not him.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I dealt with it. And that was something I grew up with my dad.
Mhm.
So there was my dad, and then there was crazy guy.
Mhm.
So I just separated the two. And I always believed I was going to get my husband,
Mhm.
no matter what the interaction, no matter what the phone call. So that was my thing. So repeat your question. Why?
My question was, why do those who aren't experiencing addiction feel like this?
Or how do we not realize all of the feelings we're feeling?
Yeah, like not realize it, or maybe even not accept it.
I think it kind of goes back to what I just said. I saw my husband, and then there was the monster, the addiction, all of that. And I'm not calling my husband a monster.
No.
The addiction is the monster that would step into him, that I would have to deal with. Because like, monster steps in, he checks out. The man I loved, the man I, said yes to, that I gave my heart to, that I had kids with and was raising kids, and all of the hopes and dreams we had checked out. It was like he is not there.
Mhm.
You know, so that would come in. And so I learned, you know, growing up, like I said, with my dad, who I love my dad, but then there was this, he wasn't addicted to drugs or anything. I've never really known exactly. I don't know if it was, he had some shrapnel in his brain. So like his personality would change, and you could kind of almost see it in his eyes. Like there would be a flash, and then I would know, okay. And it would be ebbs and flows, and sometimes it would be years in between, but there's that
That guy.
not my dad
Mhm.
thing going on. So I guess I just, because of how I grew up, I just accepted this is how it is.
Mhm.
And I must change to be able to manage that, because eventually that is going to step back out, and then I'll just have my husband again, or I'll just have my dad, right? So it was so embedded in me for such a long time that I didn't even recognize that is not normal, because that was normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so for
Yeah.
that happening with my husband, it didn't really click that this is not normal. With all of my training, with all of the everything, and knowing it was addiction, I still wouldn't allow myself to feel that, because if I were to allow myself to feel and experience that, or even acknowledge that it was going on, or that I even had a right to have those feelings, I don't know if in those moments, I don't know that I could have handled it,
Mhm.
because I wasn't healthy. So looking back, I don't think I could have handled it,
Yeah.
honestly.
And coming from the other side of it, those, you just described it perfectly. It's a monster, and it's a
Yeah.
monster that lives outside of us a lot of
Yes.
times until it possesses
Mhm.
who we are. And so I can think back, and what you're describing, I can play it back and kind of imagine myself as your husband. And you know, I know those feelings of what he's going through.
Mhm.
And so when he goes through the really up positive times,
Mhm.
that's usually when I was using,
Oh yeah.
when I was drinking, when I was, you know, when I was using drugs and alcohol, that's when I was kind, because I had that solution.
Mhm.
I had the solution that was the one thing that could kind of silence that the shame and guilt and remorse that I felt from
Yeah.
what I had, you know, whatever the motivator was, whether it had been something that happened in my childhood or just the feelings that I felt about myself. A lot of why I struggled so much was because I was so shy.
Mhm.
I was so incredibly shy as a kid, and I would get so anxious and so nervous. But right when I'd use drugs, right when I'd drink alcohol, gone.
Mhm.
It's like a whole nother version of me could come out.
You're comfortable in your skin.
I'm finally comfortable in my skin.
Mhm.
It's like I woke up to the greatest kept secret of my
Mhm.
life, you know? And over time, though, what ends up happening is that's the only time you're ever going to experience the personality that was once me all the time.
Mhm.
And so I would lose myself in this. And then what would happen was when I was using, I'd feel okay and I'd be a part of the family.
Mhm.
But when I wasn't, all I could think about was that. And it had nothing to do with any anger I had towards my screaming wasn't because I was angry at my mom or any of the other rest of my family. The disappearing all night or for days at a time, it wasn't because I was angry. That was because I was trapped in a cycle that was so much more powerful than I was. Because there were times where if I was telling somebody this morning, I used to always say, this is the last time.
Mhm.
And then I'd do it. And then I'd say, you know what? I'm going to quit tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the last time. I'm just going to do it one more time. Tomorrow was 2, 3, 4 years ago, you know? And so I was possessed by this monster that kept perpetuating that thing getting worse, the cycles that I put my family through.
Mhm.
So Kathy, how did that affect your life?
Well, because I was just thinking, like, I kind of stayed in survival mode is the best way I can describe it. Kind of always needing to be on guard for what was coming next so I could manage it. I'm one of these people that I need to take care of all the things and make sure everybody's okay. And are you getting to your appointments? Are you paying all your bills? Or, I'm ready. Bring on the next disaster. And even it's funny, like the ringer, like Drew wouldn't call me during the day. Generally, we'd text throughout the day, but I would get phone calls at like 4 a.m. when he's woken up, like he'd passed out for a while. I did not know all this at the time, learned it later. But now I realize he'd have been passed out at some point and gotten back up to drink some more and would think this is a great time to call Kathy and see what she's doing. Yeah. And then we would get in like these really like deep conversations. And then suddenly he would just disappear on me. Like the phone would go quiet.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there like, dude, like, hi, are you okay? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? And nothing for hours. And then suddenly he'd pop back up. And it's funny because I didn't realize it till rather recently, but I would start in the mornings. Like I would text him when I would get up in the morning. I'd be like, good morning. Just saying hi. I wasn't just saying hi. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was, are you okay? Are you alive? What happened to you? And I'd get like, sorry, I had to go to the bathroom or take a phone call. And I'm like, go to the bathroom for 6 hours. But, he would just disappear and then pop back up, and it took me getting into a program and working it to realize that was me, again, trying to manage and, make sure, even though he was in a freaking other state, but I was still trying to manage things and make sure he was okay and check on him. I was also thinking what you were talking about growing up with it. Like if you grow up in a family, like your parents went through cycles of addiction with loved ones. If they haven't gotten to the point where they've gotten themselves healthy, they can pass those coping mechanisms down to you.
Mhm.
And so to you, that looks normal because that's what your family was like. Because mom or dad grew up with that. That's how they learned to manage all of the feelings and behaviors throughout the family. So just that's normalcy. Like it makes total sense.
Right.
So until one of us chooses to take control of it and love ourselves and work on ourselves and get ourselves better, you can just continue to pass that down through the generation and not even realize you're doing it.
Right.
You brought up something that my family struggled with a long time, and I did too in a different kind of way. Like I was just explaining, tomorrow was 4 years ago.
Mhm.
Well, what stops that? How do we get to a place where we're ready to do anything about it? How are we ready to let what's going on the inside actually come out? Because we're showing everybody a face where we have a mask on. This is the mask I want you to see, but everything inside is saying something completely different.
Oh yeah.
Like Kim, when you show up at work, I know I'm sure that was difficult for you, showing up at work and having this mask on, but knowing inside there's something, something else.
I don't know, because I had done it for so long. I hadn't been me since
Childhood.
some point in childhood in one aspect, and then my teen years, and I didn't really know how to be me. I could in certain scenarios, right? Like I felt somewhat like me at work, but to go back to your question, I was going because I was thinking of this as you were talking. The answers, you have to start being honest. Like I was thinking about when I said I don't think I could have handled it, right? Because I would have had to have been honest, and I didn't know how to be honest with myself. That ship had sailed so long ago. Now, I believed I was honest, but if you believe a lie, it's still a lie, right? So to really start becoming honest, the question I was going to asked you that I was wondering about. Do you remember the echoes in your head? Meaning, you said that you called Drew in the morning, say, hey, hi. But do you remember that echo on the inside going, that's not why you're calling? Or, I need to know if you're okay.
Right.
The actual truth of why you were, even though you had lied to yourself and you fully believed it, there was
Right.
still an echo,
Yes.
right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely didn't admit it to myself.
Right.
In that
Oh
moment.
gosh, no.
No.
No, because you totally believed.
Yeah.
But then there's this echo
Oh, it's back there.
back there.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And once you start, or once I started somehow listening to that echo, and I think, and I've talked about it before, the first time I really started acknowledging it was when I felt like I needed to apologize to somebody here.
Mhm.
I think it was Griffin, and I think I snapped at him. I couldn't even tell you. And I called him on my way home because it just would not leave me alone. Before that, it wouldn't have bothered me. I was like, I would have excused it all the way and made sure it was Griffin's fault and
Right.
to keep it going. And just,
Just keep pushing.
be fine.
Justification.
Wyatt, you'll never get that.
Oh, man.
Well, always be your fault. But, that's how I'd always done it. And I can hear my husband as I'm explaining this going, you never apologize. He used to say that to me all, you never, because I could not tolerate it. Because I think if I accepted that something actually was my responsibility, the house of cards was going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
So that particular day, though, for whatever, I know I had been praying, help me, open my eyes, help me walk the right walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I had prayed many, many times. I've said I'm a Christian for a very long, long time, but something had changed. I meant it. And I called him and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm like tore up. And he's like, okay, well, thank you. He didn't know what to do with it. But for me to do that, like, it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I couldn't believe how good it felt. Like, the shame was not there that usually would come,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't mean it, I guess, if I apologized before. But it was so freeing. And that's when I think I started listening. For me, the echo's Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when I started paying more attention because I wanted to be free.
Yeah.
I was tired of that prison and tired of the facade and tired of not being me and not even knowing who that was. Because that was probably, what are we in, 23? Started here in 19. I would guess that was maybe 2-3 years max.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't when I first started here, I know that. So, I mean, it's been a long time. But that one moment to step out on the water and just do the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? When we talk about do the next right thing. And that was probably echoing in my head. And I did it. He didn't know what I was talking about, but it was a huge moment for me. It was a huge turning point to listen to that echo, because we can talk about the feelings, but we don't know what they are. We've shoved them down and matched what is going on and shifted, and like we're shapeshifters,
Mm-hmm.
So, or I don't know, is that the right term?
Yeah,
Is
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I know that's
Yeah.
a term from some, I don't know, what is it, like Vampire Diaries or something?
I'm
I don't
gonna
know. Who
morph into
knows?
whatever you need.
Yes, I
You're
just
always on the defense.
exactly,
Yeah.
and never me. but to actually do something that was genuine and that was me,
Mm.
I stepped out of that prison. The door was always unlocked. I just wouldn't step through it.
Mm.
I wouldn't leave the comfort of, because I knew how to do that. I've been doing it since I was a child. So to take that step and walk out, and the house of cards didn't fall. It just got better.
Right.
It just got better. I mean, I've noticed in the past, and only you, and Wyatt, you be kind. And you guys would know me in this environment, right? So I would say in the past month or two, maybe 3, I've actually been happy for the first time I can ever remember,
Oh,
like genuinely being happy.
I want to hug you right now so bad.
No,
Oh,
TV, so to speak. But
stupid podcast.
Whatever happens in this
I
room,
know.
right, stays in this room and on social media forever.
Yeah.
But that's when it really started, because I really started trusting
Mhm.
that voice and acting on it instead of pushing it as far back as I could and controlling and doing all of the things that I learned and knew didn't work
Mhm.
and didn't help me, but I knew how to do them.
Right.
So to answer your question,
Yeah, that was a
in
great answer.
5,000 minute
it was a-
answer
It was a great
is
answer.
you have to finally start being honest with yourself.
I had I went on a men's retreat, not this last weekend, but the weekend before that. And there were some things that I wasn't quite being honest about with my sponsor. And so all weekend long, I'm surrounded by my friends. I'm having a great time. Friday night, we have a ball. We go out onto a dock and we smoke cigars. We're having so much fun. And the next day, we drive down to
Dude,
It's
Texas.
a guy thing.
I know it's a
Dudes.
guy thing. I don't really like cigars, but it's fun when you're with friends. And then the next day, we all get in the car, we go somewhere, we have a great time. And I get back and I'm thinking to myself, why can I not let this thought go? Why can I not stop thinking about this? And then I kept trying to push it down. But the harder I pushed it down, the faster it wanted to come back up.
Mhm.
And that just filled me with so much shame and regret and remorse. And so I finally pulled my good mentor, my good friend and mentor to the side. I said, "Hey, I've got to leave this stuff with you here at Lake Murray. I don't want to take it back home with me. I just feel like it's haunting me. It's haunting my life." And then he's like, "Okay, let's talk about it." And so I shared it with him. And it's like you said, when you had called Griffin, it's just something about getting honest and listening to the voice in the back. Because that voice all weekend saying, "Hey, talk about it. Just talk about it. It's gonna be easy. Just talk about it."
Mhm. The truth will set you free.
And the truth set me free. I haven't been at this level of peace since I talked about those things. And you know what he said to me? He said, "Why didn't you tell me this earlier? This is not that big of a deal.
Right.
Pierce, you are holding on to this for no reason. You're making your life miserable for no reason at all."
Right.
And so when I got it out, it was just like the weights of trying to hide, manipulate what you see isn't what is actually there. And only I know that.
Right.
Only I'm the one making up this whole idea in my head that what you're seeing isn't the real me. The real me is somebody you wouldn't love, and that's the real big issue behind it. Because what I think is, if you saw the real me, you wouldn't love me for who I am.
Yeah.
And vocalizing that, and just stepping out of the
Mhm.
house of cards that you were saying, stepping out of that doorway
Mhm.
and just getting honest about it.
Right.
It showed me like, dude, you are way overcomplicated. It just would have helped to get honest in the first place.
Right.
That's I share some more experience.
That's so
It's all
funny.
you, Kathy.
I hate this topic. Okay. So I don't like talking about feelings, if you haven't picked up on that. What got me to the point, I guess, I've talked about this before. It's like, we say like folks in addiction, when they get sick and tired of being sick and tired, they're finally going to do something about it. And that's kind of what happened with me, is that I realized, you know, Drew's getting healthier, like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and I'm still a crazy person. I'm like making up stuff to worry about and keep an eye on, and there's nothing there to worry about. And so I actually had a talk with Griffin one night. Well, dang,
Oh,
at work.
God.
I know, of all people.
Griffin.
I
Oh, no. Griffin's
And,
going to be calling us.
I know.
I'm the man.
All the Griffin. But I had a talk with him about like the program I'm in now, and because it's something that had been suggested to me when I came up here for Drew's family counseling. It'd been thrown at me by multiple staff members, and every time I'm just like, what? I don't need that. You don't know me. Why do I have to go to meetings? I didn't do anything wrong. This is nonsense. I even got this close to going, can I just sit in on some counseling, like, or groups here at the facility? Maybe I'd get something out of them, which was ridiculous.
Did you ask me? Did I go?
No. Luckily, that didn't come out of my mouth, but I thought it for several days. Yeah, that's what the crazy brain does too. So I remember eventually kind of giving in, and there was like a sequence of occurrences that happened that got me to where I was going to go ahead and go check it out. And I remember talking to Julie, our old director, and I'm like, listen, I had this idea. I'm going to go check out this program. And she's like, oh, it's going to be so good for you. I'm like, don't make it a thing. I'm not going again. I'm just ruling it out because I don't need it, but it's been nagging at me. So I'm going to go check it out. And then don't worry, I won't do it again. And then I'm like 15 minutes into this meeting. I'm like, oh gosh, I belong here. This is no. But I found my people. And it's funny because I like everything I've never been able to say out loud, all those like thoughts and feelings that you don't dare admit to anybody outside of this stuff. I'm like, they all get it. They've all had the same thoughts. Not so great thoughts. But they get it, like they understand you. And so the more I've like worked this program, worked with my mentor in the program, it's made it easier, like very slowly, because I don't like talking about the feelings, but the more I do it, the easier it gets. But it's funny, like Drew, God bless him. Initially, like I don't like crying, which is ironic because I do it all the time. Just any heightened emotion, it comes. Actually, a friend of mine jokes that I have my own box of tissues at her house because I do. But initially, when I was at least getting brave enough to admit them, I still couldn't get up the nerve to say them. So.
Oh, I totally get that.
Yeah. So I remember my mother when she would have frustrations with my sister over the years. My sister loves to argue. So she's like, you can't argue with a piece of paper. So she would write her letters to kind of let her know her feelings about situations. So I went, I could do that. I can write it down. God bless him. Every once in a while, if something that we've never had like a fight, but if something has come up between us and I just needed to tell him, but I couldn't tell him, I would write it down. And this poor man would get like 9, 10, 12 page letters from me. It was just like, here.
Did he read all?
He did, because bless him, I'm sure there was some praying and meditating that was required before he came and talked those out with me.
This is after he got sober.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this does not. I can
No,
tell
don't
you,
do this when there's still
do it
addiction.
when- yes.
No.
because I did try that, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that worked.
Yeah.
It did not work for me.
No, this was definitely after he got in this. Like he was sober,
That makes more
working his
sense.
program. I had started working mine. No, because I didn't dare approach any of that when he was still in his addiction. There was.
I tried it once or twice.
What was
It
the
not
point?
good.
Like, yeah. Also, our situation's a little weird because I had no clue what was going on with him because he was in another state and we hadn't been in the same room in like 20 plus years. And he'd been here about 10 days when he went, so I got a problem. And we're like, all right, let's go. And it's funny because my brain kicked right into, all right, let's manage this. What do we need to do? Who do we need to call? Where do we need to go? Tell me, let's do this. And we did. Like, I had no clue what I was doing. I was terrified and wanted to throw up. I was so scared. But it was, we got to do this. And it's funny. I remember one of my most vivid memories is like the morning we were going to detox. He'd like overslept, woke up in a panic because of it. He had this like list of things he wanted to get done before we left the house. And we didn't have time to do those. So he's running around like a maniac. At one point, he had a full-on meltdown because he needed to do laundry. And I'm like, honey, you're going to be in the hospital for a few days. I can do the laundry. You're 30 minutes from the house when you get to treatment. I will bring it out there, I promise. But he was like, okay, we're just going to take a breather for a minute, go out on the porch, have a smoke, and just, whoosh. And I had to run out to my truck really quick. And I remember this whole time I'm trying to just maintain control and make sure he's okay the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
The second I get out my front door, completely lost it. It was like I had a moment to breathe and all those emotions like hit me. Now I'm trying not to cry. But I had a full-on meltdown in my driveway. And then I remember thinking, okay, you got to get it back together because you got to go back in there and be strong for him. So it's funny. I was going to say he could probably tell, but he was also off in his own stuff in that moment, so he may not even notice. But I remember vividly like, okay, I'm by myself, so I can have this moment of freak out, and then you got to get it back under control so you can go back in here and be on guard and manage all the stuff. And so it's funny how now I'm in a position where I've been working this program for 2 years, learning that, A, I'm not responsible for anybody else's stuff. Or their behavior, and I can't fix it.
And it doesn't have to affect us.
No, I can't fix it. And frankly, all it does is make me crazy when I'm trying to fix it. So,
And them.
Yes, whatever.
I know, they would just do.
Get over it and just
would be
cooperate.
So much easier.
Yeah. But it's funny now that I've like realized all that. We're very wordy tonight, but now I'm just gonna
it's
keep
great.
going. But yeah, but it's like now that I realized all that and I've gotten to a place where I realize not only do I not have to fix everybody else's stuff, it's not my job.
Right.
It's not my business most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just need to focus on me, which feels really selfish when you start doing that. Like you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But then you start looking around and realize everybody else is doing it and they're okay and you don't hate them for it. So it's very freeing when you can finally get to that point where you can take care of yourself, let your loved ones do what they gotta do, and you can start being honest with them about
Right.
your feelings. Now I don't write him 12-page letters anymore. We can just have conversations, which is really nice too. I'm sure he much prefers that, but
Yeah, that's really cool.
yeah, it was a lot.
Well,
That's all right.
you said when one of the positive consequences
Mm-hmm.
that comes from, because I've been on like I said, I've been saying all night. I don't even know why I keep reiterating it. Everybody knows. I've been listening the whole time.
Did you say you used to be in addiction? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I said,
Yeah?
yeah, but
Okay.
now
That
I'm
was such a
recovering.
shock at the beginning.
I know.
I know, what a
Yeah.
mind blower. There's a positive consequence that comes from you taking the opportunity to work on you.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what had to happen to me because when my enabler stopped enabling,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had no roof over my head, I had no billfold to get money out of, I had no car to steal, I had no person to manipulate to get what I needed to do so I could do what I want. My house of cards fell down.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I had no more good ideas. And when I was finally ready to get help, that was when my family said, "You're not doing this to us anymore."
Right.
That created a domino effect in my life. And that made me hit my bottom quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally hit my bottom was when I was ready to say, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this anymore. Because what I have nothing to grab onto anymore, and I'm falling. And so my family, as a result of them getting help, is them getting better, is it kind of put me in a position where I had to get better. Where I was in a place now where I was not being.
You're out of options.
I was out of options. I
Yeah.
couldn't continue living the way that I wanted to. I couldn't comfortably use anymore.
But I would say that is not when your house of cards fell.
Explain.
I bet you were wondering,
I
what
am.
is
What
that
does that
lady
mean?
talking about now? Your house of cards fell when you walked out the door. and you said, I need help, because the cards are all the lies, are all the
That's a good
manipulations, all of the things.
That's a good point.
So all of that external stuff is the stuff that we like to point at as being the reason, right?
Yeah.
Distraction.
But it's not your fault. It's not, well, it might be Wyatt's fault. It's not Pierce's fault. We've been playing all day. It wasn't Michael's fault, my Michael. It was my fault.
Mhm.
My life was where it was because of me.
Your choices.
Yeah.
My choices, all of the lies that I believed, because if you believe a lie, it's still a lie. But it's what you believe, it's what you're holding on to, but it's just cards.
Mhm.
And until you step out of this fake house you've built, it can't fall down. You have to get out of it
Take away
for it
its
to
foundation.
crash. And that's the moment you start becoming free.
Mhm.
That's a
God,
good
right.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
So-
point there.
Don't give her too much credit.
I don't know if you just heard Wyatt, but he said don't give Cam too much credit.
I would
That
say
was
he's
tough.
right, because I would say it was Jesus.
We've had a really good conversation, man.
Yeah.
A really good conversation. So I want to touch back on something that I said at the beginning of the podcast. Is we're getting close to the end. Although we started on time, technically.
True.
We did. The podcast didn't.
Yes,
But we'll still cut it
it
out.
doesn't like us.
No.
So I want to touch back on something that I mentioned earlier in the podcast, was that, Kathy was talking about the program she works, and Wyatt, did you post the number? Wyatt posted Kathy's number. If you're curious about what that looks like, or just want to have a further conversation about, you may be saying to yourself, I can see and recognize myself in what Kim and Kathy are talking about. And my loved one sounds like Pierce, Let's just be honest. Because I was crazy. I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
We all were.
Yeah, I think we all were a little bit. But if this sounds like you, one thing that I had to do is I had to reach out to somebody that was talking my language.
Yeah.
I had to reach out and say, because the odds of me recovering on my own were so slim. I had tried it.
Mhm.
I tried it in 2019. When the first time I tried to get sober, I tried it all by myself. I said, I don't want the sober livings. I don't want the sponsor. I don't want to do any outside programs. I've got this. Within like 2 months, it was all crumbling down.
Mhm.
And so I couldn't do it by myself. And I couldn't put the words to what I was feeling like other people were able to around me.
Mhm.
And so I had to reach out. I had to reach out for help. And it took a while. Unfortunately, it took some hard-earned experience to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I probably should ask somebody what they're doing.
Well, and it's scary. Like, I remember making that phone call. Like, Drew gave me the woman I called. He gave me her phone number, and I have what I call brave moments, which is basically me just taking a whole lot of deep breaths, and like I imagine myself jumping off a cliff, and those are my brave moments. And it took I don't know why calling this woman was so terrifying. It was so scary. The phone weighs like 100 pounds when you're trying to make that phone call. And I don't know why, but ironically, everybody that I've heard talk about making that call for the first time says the same thing. It's
Because
scary.
you're about to be naked, basically.
Yes.
You're about to,
Yes.
everything that you've been hiding,
Yeah.
you're about to put it out there.
Yeah.
You're about to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's like, if you can find the courage to dial that number and just say hello, and however you needed to get it out. Mine was, I was given your number. This is why I'm calling you. And usually that other person will just take over from there, because they know who you are and they know what you've been through and they know what you're feeling without you having to say much more than that.
Mhm.
So it's scary, but definitely make the call.
No, it seems like it's been worth it in your life.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I've gotten to watch you grow. You've gotten to watch me grow.
Yeah.
Because we started kind of growing at the same time.
We did.
It's been cool. That's another part of the journey that's so fun. When I was on that fellowship that weekend, the men's retreat, it was getting to be around other people that have experienced the same thing I have,
Mm-hmm.
that know what I've been through, and that we're all kind of going in the same direction,
Mm-hmm.
and we're getting the opportunity to grow together. Because how alone were we
Yeah,
in all of these things that we were doing?
absolutely.
How alone were we when we had to put on that mask?
Right.
So scary, lonely. But
Both
we don't
sides
have to.
of it.
We don't. That's not the way we live today.
No.
You know?
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness
Yeah.
for that.
Because I know some of your stories, and I'm looking at you and I'm thinking them, and I'm like, yeah, like, and we think as in our role, like, how do you not see it?
Mm-hmm.
But how did we not see it
Right.
for ourselves either?
Right.
But,
Yeah.
well, we didn't see it because it was your fault,
Sure.
right? I
Right.
mean, because we blamed that you didn't see it because it was our fault. It's always somebody else's fault until you're finally willing to deal with yourself.
Because it's easier to deflect that stuff than tell the truth, face the
Oh, yeah.
truth about yourself.
Yeah.
And your feelings.
Right.
Because feelings are icky.
Right. Because you always hear it's your responsibility and all these things, but until you're really willing to let that connect in your brain
Right.
and start doing something about it, it's just these
Mm-hmm.
cards.
And what can you control out here?
Nothing.
Nothing. That's
Whatever.
Drilled, that's been drilled into my head.
It's true.
What can you control
Whatever.
outside yourself?
I sure tried. Ask my husband, he'll
Uh-huh.
tell you.
Yeah, I did too. I'm sure I tried to control it too. Wyatt, do we have any questions?
No, but Caleb Klusmeyer is ecstatic to see you on camera.
Oh, that's nice of him.
Yeah.
He's a nice boy.
It's good to hear from you,
Yeah.
buddy. Hope to hear more from you.
That is it for right now.
All
Awesome.
right.
That concludes my report.
Well done, sir.
Cool. Thanks, Wyatt.
Yeah.
Such a good guy. Such a good guy. Does nothing wrong.
Okay.
Hey,
I'll take care of that.
Don't be lying.
you guys have anything else that you want to add on to this conversation?
I don't think so.
No.
Kathy?
No, I think pretty much just what we said. It's like when you're ready, if you can have a brave moment of your own, like give one of us a call.
Yeah. Shoot us a text. Text can be
Texting
easy.
is way easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you need a
But
text, shoot
Be
a text.
prepared.
But
When you shoot that text, you might just be getting a phone call in return.
That's true.
This is true.
I'll text you back if you want to call. We'll texting. It's fine. We'll get there. Look at me.
Awesome.
Codependency. Come right back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Kim. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you,
I had a lot of
Pierce.
fun tonight. It was a good time.
Yeah.
And thanks,
Yes.
Wyatt.
Thank you guys.
And thanks for everyone that logged on and joined us.
Bye.
See you next time.